Well, if you've been paying attention to what's been going on in the rest of the world, Ukraine and everything else, you might not have been noticing, but we're going to bring it to your attention, what Republicans are quietly and secretly trying to do right now. It's something they've long wanted to do, which is to eliminate Social Security, what they have called for the longest time, entitlement programs, right? They want to get rid of, first of all, I find that so insulting, like this idea of an entitlement program, right? The United States has almost no social safety net, right? I mean, that's almost like we have this little fabric of a social safety net that pays out very little to people to, in a little bit to make sure our seniors are taken care of. But it's not a social safety net. You want to see a social safety net, go to Norway, go to other countries that actually take care of its people. We do not have that. So this idea that you are entitled to have Social Security, yes, you are entitled to have Social Security.
Well, you pay into it, right?
Yes.
It's your money. It's a terribly run program. It gives you very little for what you actually, you lend the government money for basically interest free, and they take it and do whatever the heck they want. Did you know that Social Security was started by Roosevelt as part of his war on poverty after visiting the Deep South and seeing people with no shoes? And he felt like, oh my God, I live in a different world as this. We need to actually do something. So, it was initially intended to provide financial security for older Americans. Now it provides some security for people who are either no longer able to work or have some sort of family situation that they are not able to work. But it is not a very efficient program. Republicans, I think they're right in that it is very mismanaged and inefficient, but at the same time, it takes a large portion of your paycheck every month, every week, however often you're paid, puts it in a fund that you are supposed to be able to draw from.
Right. So Republicans have long wanted to end this program, and they're back at it again while the world is focused on other things. Senator Rick Scott of Florida recently put out an 11-point plan for America, echoing what other Republicans have been calling for as well. In it, though, he highlights specifically the sunsetting of Social Security. Now, John Roberts on Fox News, my old colleague, called him out about this on the Sunday show and went specific into his plan, and Senator Scott didn't like it very much. Watch this whole exchange here, but you get to see how Republicans are actually being called on the carpet about this.
You recently put out an 11-point plan to rescue America, two of the big points of which are, quote, all Americans should pay some income tax to have skin in the game, even if a small amount. Currently, over half of Americans pay no income tax. It also says all federal legislation sunsets in 5 years. If a law is worth keeping, Congress can pass it again. So that would raise taxes on half of Americans and potentially sunset programs like Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. Why would you propose something like that in an election year?
Or ever.
Sure. Well, John, that's, of course, the Democrat talking points. It's a
No, it's in the plan. It's in the plan.
But here's this thing about reality for a second. Let's talk about Medicare.
But Senator, hang on.
John.
So it's not a Democratic talking point. It's in the plan.
And also in the plan, it says we ought to every year talk about exactly how we're going to fix Medicare and Social Security. Here's what's happening. No one that I know of wants to sunset Medicare or Social Security. But what we're doing is we don't even talk about it. Medicare goes bankrupt in 4 years. Social Security goes bankrupt in 12 years. I think we ought to figure out how we preserve those programs.
Right. So we're going to preserve them by sunsetting.
There are ways to do that.
Right. So we're going to preserve these programs by making sure they expire. That's how we protect you.
Okay. So I recently studied a large book on Social Security, and I want to just share this little bit with you. So this author who actually just wrote a book, it's not a sexy book. It's called Social Security, Medicare, and Government Pensions, Get the Most Out of Your Retirement. It's not a partisan book. It's just, what is the program? What do you have to gain from it? And what's good or bad about these programs. But again, it's not a partisan book. The author says there are simple ways to fix the Social Security system, but they are ignored by politicians who want nothing less than to end all public pensions and other support systems and force all retirement savings into the stock market. There, people's savings would be bled by the financial institutions and other corporate profiteers that run Wall Street. So why do they say this? That's exactly why, right? They want no social support programs, but instead to funnel that money into their buds' pockets at Wall Street. Here are just a few ways, like reasonable, nonpartisan ways, if you really wanted Social Security to not go bankrupt in 12 years, which he's right about that. The budget does show that Social Security could be bankrupt in less than a decade, or just over a decade. Number one, you could remove the cap on earnings subject to Social Security tax, the FICA tax. Right now, Social Security doesn't tax any earned income over $142,000. Well, you could that is one way to actually tax all wages, right? Sure, debate amongst you. That's just one way that actually would work. Set off against early benefits for non-earned income, delay full retirement age, slight reduction in benefit for high income recipients, right? There are absolutely things you could do. None of them you'll hear out of a politician's mouth.
No, and but they're doing it quietly, right? And this is, so he was slapped down by Mitch McConnell. I don't know if you were familiar with this, but when Senator Scott released this 11-point plan, he was taken to the woodshed over this for putting this out publicly. Mitch McConnell, apparently, and this was made public, that he, Senator Scott got hauled into a meeting and was basically vilified by Mitch McConnell over this, because he's like, you don't say this out loud. Yes, of course we want to get rid of Social Security, but you just don't say it out loud.
Yes.
We're going to do it surreptitiously, under the dark of night. That's how we're going to do it. Unless you're George W. Bush, who said, you know what, let's end Social Security the way we know it, and let's let you invest in the stock market. And Wall Street loved that idea. Wall Street was like, yes, oh yeah, absolutely. Well, we love the idea of you taking all of those government dollars and funneling them into into the stock market. It was a perfect marriage. Then, of course, you had the 2008 collapse, so everyone would have done great with their Social Security plan under that plan.
Ronald Gross in the chat says, well, stop taxing grandma's Social Security. That's immoral. That also blows my mind. When you study Social Security, you work your whole life, right, to have this little bit that's, it's meant to keep you off the streets, but not enough to actually live on. And then you pay taxes on that. That's money you lent to the government while you were still a workhorse, right? The government did who knows what with it. And now they're saying you can have a little back, a little sip every month, but we're still going to tax it. It's crazy to me.
I mean, I had someone in my trading group the other day. They're like, I'm really thinking about leaving the United States. There's a lot of people in the trading group. They're like, Uncle Sam, they tax me left, right. What if I, move to Puerto Rico? And I'm like, even if you move to Puerto Rico, it's still the United States.
Yes.
Yes, it might sound good to some Wall Street billionaire who's going to go and live in Puerto Rico, but you're missing the point. That just as soon as more and more billionaires move to Puerto Rico, the tax man is coming for you next in Puerto Rico.
Well, and it wouldn't be so bad if we got something out of it. We don't. I mean, they just blow our money. If we got health care and stuff like that out of what they tax us, I could maybe justify it. But
we get software bugs to hack people.
The Norwegians feel that way, David. They feel that way. They feel like, hey, yes, we pay more in our taxes, but we get something for it. We get daycare, we get childcare, we get health care, we get, we're taken care of.
Yeah.
And so we get free university, we get all of those things, but you don't get that in the United States.
Their tax rate is very high. I mean, it's like really high.
And they're
tax
fine,
rate.
and they're okay paying
close to the 50% mark.
Yeah.
High 40s. It's interesting. When politicians say stupid things about Social Security, they're not really interested. It's funny that they don't say anything about the plans that, for instance, your pre-tax or post-tax 401k or IRA money. They don't say much about that, right? Because that's you partnering with the government to invest in the stock market. They like that.
Right. Well, if their money came out of that pocket, that pool, they definitely worry about it, but they don't care because that's where we get our money.
Here's another few seconds of this.
Every program that we care about, we ought to stop and take the time to preserve those programs. I just fought the postal bill because it put more responsibility on Medicare and took it off the postal service and put Medicare in a worse position. Now, let's go back. Let's talk about taxes for a second. I'll put my record up against anybody on tax cuts. I cut taxes and fees 100 times as governor. But here's what's unfair. We have people that could go to work and have figured out how to have government pay their way. That's not right. They ought to have some skin in the game. I don't care if it's $1. We ought to all be in this together. I'm going to continue to focus on reducing taxes. That's what I've done my whole life. But there's an 11-step plan. Go through it. Everybody's not going to agree with everything. 128 policy points. Let's be bold. Go to rescueamerica.com. Give me your ideas, or you can text America to 22044. Give me your ideas. I want to change this country. The woke left controls everything. We got to win, and we got to change the country.
As you said, not everyone agrees with it, and one of the people that doesn't agree with it is Mitch McConnell. Here's what he said.
Let me tell you what would not be a part of our agenda. We will not have as part of our agenda a bill that raises taxes on half of the American people and sunsets Social Security and Medicare within 5 years. That will not be part of a Republican Senate majority agenda.
Now, a few days after.
Ooh. Zing. And he said, the Republican Party doesn't need to be a group of cowards. And so he's like, are you calling Mitch McConnell a coward? It's like, oh, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. So I think you're seeing the signs here of a future presidential run from Rick Scott also. But this is where the Republican Party is at. There's plenty of ways to fix Social Security. Among them, though, is not canceling Social Security. If you like this content, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Also, we have a membership program. For the price of a cup of coffee once a month, you can support independent journalism just by going to morninginvest.com/join.
You get access to exclusive videos, plus the ability to join and chat with us live. We really appreciate your subscription, and you are supporting independent journalism.